think retirement requires a seven-figure bank account, but the actual numbers tell a very different story. What if I told you the average household in the US is spending far less than most people expect, and many people are getting by just fine? In this video, we're going to break down exactly what you're spending, where that money is going, and how much you actually need saved to hit those numbers. The truth is, it's a lot more achievable than people think. Start with the number. According to the latest data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average retired household in the U.S. spends around $4,300 per month. That's over $52,000 a year. Keep in mind, that's just an average. It doesn't account for regional cost of living. Definitely doesn't mean that's what you should aim for, but it gives us a solid starting point of how retired people are making it work. Now remember, this number reflects not individual spending. That's an important distinction. Most retired households include more than one person, typically a married couple, so this isn't spending each month on their own. In fact, the average retired household has about 1.7 people, according to census data. So when your expenses are over $4,000, it's not just covering one person's costs. Let's dig a little deeper into where that money actually goes. Surprisingly, is housing. Retired households still spend over $1,600 per month on housing, whether it's rent, mortgage payments, or maintenance. And that number is actually pretty low, considering the average rent for a two-bedroom place in the U.S. is about $1,900 per month, which doesn't. A lot of people assume housing costs drop dramatically once you retire, but that's not always the case. Even if your mortgage is paid off, you've still got taxes, upkeep, and in many cases, downsizing actually ends up costing more than people expect if they move to areas with HOA fee communities with built-in costs. Next up is transportation, which costs around $670 per month on average. This covers gas, maintenance, and for some, car payments. Yes, even retirees still carry those, and they can be one of the biggest drains on wealth for anyone. Many retired couples manage to get by with just one car since they're not commuting to separate jobs every day. This can save a significant amount of money. Please generally drive less overall, avoiding long commutes and the extra trips chauffeuring kids around, which also helps keep costs down. And let's not forget retired households spend nearly $600 per month on healthcare expenses. That includes premiums, prescriptions, out-of-pocket costs, and service fully cover. And this number increases every year as you age. Food is another major category, coming in at around $400 per month for food and about $200 per month for food away from home. That's fairly consistent with national averages and doesn't tend to decrease much in retirement. Some eat out more often, some cook more at home, but inflation has pushed food bills higher for everyone, and the cost of dining out sure hasn't gone down. Beyond that, small, miscellaneous categories like entertainment, clothing, gifts, and other smaller expenses. Now remember, all these numbers are live in a big city with a high cost of living. You're going to be spending a lot more than this. If you're in rural Kansas or Mississippi, maybe less. But the point, relatively modest area, retirement is not cheap. And that's what makes the question so important. Will you have enough? Before we break that number down, let's live. The average monthly Social Security check is about $2,000. If both members of a retired household are collecting, you're looking at roughly a month, slightly below the average spending level. Now let's flip the script. If the average retired household spends $4,345 money, would you need to generate that amount consistently without running out? If you use the 4% rule as a guideline, which says you can safely withdraw retirement savings each year, adjusting for inflation, it provides a conservative estimate. Interestingly, even the rule's original creator has noted that retirees could safely withdraw more than that amount. Even so, using the 4% rule as a benchmark, you'd need roughly 1 point savings to consistently generate $52,000 per year in retirement income. That's just the raw math, assuming no other income source. Planning to retire early and don't want to rely on Social Security or earn any extra income on the side, that's the kind of number you'd want to aim for. Now, two average Social Security incomes, that alone brings in around $48,000 per year, which means you're only about $4,000 short of cover. And to bridge that small gap, you'd only need about $100,000 in retirement savings, assuming a 4% withdrawal rate. That amount would generate $1,000 per year indefinitely, giving you a complete income picture without needing a massive portfolio. Now let's say you're a single person with only security income, around $24,000 annually. To cover the full $52,000 in average spending, you'd need to make up the remaining $28,000. Using the 4% rule again, that would require about $700,000 in retirement savings. But in reality, a single retiree likely wouldn't be a two-person household. Housing might be smaller and less expensive. Daily costs like groceries and utilities would be lower, and even transportation can be reduced to account for. These numbers don't include taxes, and that's intentional, because the truth is, everyone's tax situation in retirement is way different. Mix of factors, like where your money is coming from, whether it's an IRA or Roth account, a taxable brokerage account, your tax bracket, your host of other personal details. But in many cases, retirees end up paying much less in income taxes than most people expect, especially if a large is coming from Social Security or tax-advantaged accounts. Now, to be fair, not everyone needs $52,000 per year during retirement. But there's a wide range of lifestyles within the retired population. A ton of people are living on much less than that. Some out of choice, others out of necessity of retired people getting by on Social Security income alone, albeit not always the most comfortable lifestyle. Not everyone needs constant travel, expensive hobbies to feel fulfilled, especially as they age and those things get more challenging. While $52,000 per year might be average, it's definitely fits-all figure, and your own retirement needs might be quite a bit higher or lower depending on where you live, your health, your habits, and your expectations. On the other people spending a lot more than that. That $52,000 figure is an average, or mean, which means it can be influenced by households with much higher spending, retirees. In other words, a few high-spending households can skew that number upwards. A median figure would give a better sense of what a more typical actually spends, since it represents the middle point rather than the mean. But unfortunately, the BLS doesn't provide a clear median spending number specifically, so we're working with the best data available. We can see that the biggest wild card here is Social Security. How much do you think you're going to be bringing in? Dramatically change how much you actually need to have saved. If you're planning to retire early, before you're eligible for benefits, or if you'd rather play it safe, little or nothing from Social Security, then yes, you'll need to rely heavily on your own savings. But if you're retiring at a more traditional age and are expecting to collect Social Security checks, say for you and your spouse, you might not need to save nearly as much to meet the average spending level in retirement. Think about it. If you're able to nest egg and have a decent income from Social Security, you're going to be sitting pretty well. Someone with $500,000 saved could conservatively withdraw about or $20,000. And if they're married, bringing in 2 Social Security incomes, that's almost $70,000 per year. Now let's put that by comparing average retirement spending to what the typical household spends across all age groups. The average U.S. household spends about $77,000 according to the latest data. That's 32% more than the average retired household. This decrease makes sense when you think about it. Retirees aren't commuting costs, raising a family, or work-related expenses, like professional wardrobes or lunch outings. Many have paid off their mortgages, downsized out to areas with a lower cost of living. They may also spend less on things like entertainment or eating out. But it's also a double-edged sword. While expensive, so does income. You're no longer earning a paycheck, so you're relying on fixed sources like Social Security, pensions, or personal savings. The 32 is probably partially out of necessity and partly due to personal spending choices. Many people don't realize how little it takes to retire comfortably if the Social Security income. How much do you think you'll need to retire? Do you plan on spending far more than the average retired household, or do you think you'll fall somewhere in the middle?